Dear viewers, welcome to this session on consumer environment. This pertains to the program Consumer Protection Legislation CPI 101. Today in this topic, the prime focus is on how the psychological factors and family environment influences the purchasing decision of a consumer. Before that, everybody know that a consumer is a person who purchases goods and services for personal use. They are influenced by several environmental factors that have an important bearing on their behavior. A holistic view of the consumer environment recognizes that man is a complex being and that any explanation of his economic decisions that ignores his psychological makeup, the society in which he lives, and the cultural background that shapes his outlook on life is likely to lead to poor business decisions by manufacturers and distributors of wide range of goods. Now, the question is, what is consumer environment? The family as well as economic, social and cultural factors or forces taken together constitute the consumer environment. The consumer environment can be broadly classified as external, internal. The external environment comprises the various economic, social and cultural forces that are beyond the control of individual consumers. The internal environment, however, comprises of psychological factors of the consumer that includes cognition, beliefs, attitudes, motivation, personality, perception, learning and interpersonal response trials. Psychological factors which impact the consumer can be divided into motivation or beliefs. So we will discuss it one by one. First is the motivation. Now motivation is what will drive consumers to develop a purchasing behavior, usually working at a subconscious level, and is often difficult to measure. It is the expression of a need which became pressing enough to lead the consumer wants to satisfy it. To increase the sales and encourage the consumer to purchase, the businesses try to create, they make conscious or reinforce a need in the consumer's mind, aiming to develop motivation for purchasing so that consumer gets interested in considering and buy their products. Perception. Now, perception is the process through which an individual selects, organizes, and interprets the information he receives in order to do something that makes sense. The perception of a situation at a given time may decide if and how the person will act. Depending to its experience, beliefs, and personal characteristics, an individual will have a different perception from another. The perception mechanism of an individual is organized around three processes: selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention learning. Learning is through action. When we act, we learn. It implies a change in the behavior resulting from acquiring information and experience. For example, if you are sick after drinking milk, you had definitely a negative experience. You associate the milk with that state of discomfort, and then you learn that you should not drink milk. Therefore, you don't buy milk anymore. Rather, if you had a good experience with the product, you will have much more desire to buy it again next time. So the learning theories can be used in marketing by brands. As the theory of the operant conditioning, which states that you can build a good image and high demand for a product by associating it with a positive reinforcement, or rather a bad image with a negative reinforcement. Another psychological factors are beliefs and attitudes. A belief is a conviction that an individual has on something. Through his experience and external influences, which may be from the family, friends, etc., the consumer will develop beliefs that will influence his buying behavior. While an attitude can be defined as feeling, an assessment of an object or an idea, and the predisposition to act in a certain way towards that object. Now, attitude allows the individual to develop a coherent behavior against a class of similar objects or ideas. Beliefs as well as attitudes, they are generally well anchored in the individual's mind and are difficult to change. For many people, their beliefs and attitudes are part of their personality, of who they are. However, it's important to understand, identify, and analyze the positive attitudes and beliefs, but also the negative ones that consumer can have on a brand or a product to enable businesses to change the brand's marketing and perception. Now, family environment plays very important role in the consumer buying practices. Now, human being starts a life in a family. There are common needs and wants of every human being which are fulfilled in a family. Family is the most influential group for the consumer. The family members can strongly influence the buying behavior. The effects of traditional attitudes, interests, motivations, etc. is appreciable not only in formative years but is likely to extend throughout the lifespan of its member. During their early years, children often acquire the consumption habits, including learning brand names of certain types of products, which become part of their way of life. The lifestyle of a family largely sets its status in a society. People's aspirations, professional opportunities, general behavior, and expectations are deeply affected by the traditional living style of their families. With children getting more attention in a small family, there is general willingness to meet their reasonable needs and desires to facilitate their success in life even at the cost of present hardship. Though the family individuals are introduced in a society, they learn acceptable standards of behavior. Within the family, cultural values are transmitted and specific roles are assumed in the household. Members of a family interact with one another, and this may lead to conflict also on certain occasions, particularly when those in authority constrain the behavior of dependents. A mother may decide that she knows best what type of clothing to buy for their young children and refuse to purchase the garments which she thinks are unsuitable. So in traditional homes, making and management activities, ethics and values are easily passed as to the children by their mothers. In modern setting, however, family is becoming more and more complex, where the parents are occupied outside home for longer hours and may have little time to spend with children and pass their knowledge of consumerism to their children and protect them from many physical, environmental, and economic hazards. There are certain important factors or elements which affect the family consumption. There are three main elements which directly affect the family consumption. They are family life cycle, the structure of the family, and family decision-making process. Structural aspects of a family impacting consumer needs. If we look into that, we see that many research on the structural aspects of family, they attempt to describe and understand how family members interact and influence each other in terms of household purchase. Now, Coulter describes that there are two types of families in the buyer's life: a family of orientation and family of procreation. A family of orientation consists of one's parent and siblings, from where a person acquires an orientation towards religion, politics, economics, and a sense of personal ambition, self-worth, love. The family of procreation includes one's spouse and children, who have more direct influence on everybody's buying behavior. The type of family, like the married couple, the nuclear family, joint family, or extended family, they also impact the consumer buying practices. In Western societies, marriage generally leads to a new household being established. New housing, furniture, kitchen equipments, etc. are required. The impact on consumer need is therefore considerable. But where a new home is not immediately set up and the newly married couples continue to live with a joint family, a different pattern spending will result. In nuclear households, it has been seen that the wife's mother or a mother-in-law is the person to advise. So her influence is considerable in the initial stage of setting up the home. As the young housewife acquires experience and self-confidence, the influence of the elder as an advisor tends to decline. So the personality characteristics of housewife affect the rate at which she is able to become independent in her shopping behavior. Her motivation influence, for example, her need for achievement or for dominance likely to contribute significantly to her style of housekeeping. So the social and cultural environment of the joint family, they exert consistent informal pressures to conform to the norms of household, offers mutual help to the members. The clustering of families spanning several generations has undoubtedly and a profound effect on the behavior of an individual. The strong family links may discourage the adoption of new lifestyles, and patterns of personal expenditure may be inhibited by the cultural traditions and taboos of the family. The composition of a family changes over time. Let us look into the family life cycle. Family is a dynamic entity, and with that, the family's needs, behavior of its members, and the decision-making process also change. The change in composition in family is known as family life cycle, which is basically the progression of stages through which many families pass. There is, however, another framework called consumer life cycle, which explains the stages a consumer passes through in life, reflecting the systematic effects of age, marital status, and presence of children. The family life cycle model, there are certain family life cycle models. One of them is given by Shiffen and Canuck. They have proposed the family life cycle model consisting of 5 stages. In the general progression of an adult is considered over the period in question. There are few stages which are like as follows. The stage 1 is the bachelorhood. So this stage consists of a young adult living apart from their parents. Then stage 2 is the honeymooners. It consists of a young married couples with no children. Stage 3 is a parenthood. This stage consists of a married couple at least with one child living at home. The fourth is post-parenthood. This stage consists of an older married couple with no children living at home. And the last one is dissolution, which consists of only surviving spouse. So each family thus passes through a cycle that begins with the marriage of 2 young persons, grows with arrival of children, and then again become a home of 2 persons when the children leave and have their houses. Thus, what kind of products are to be purchased and consumed by what type of families and household? Several factors influence the way in which they spend. Most important of them are family life cycle. The knowledge of life cycle of a family and its changing patterns help a family in planning for the future. The special needs life cycle offers unique opportunities to the marketers by identifying the target market for the demand for a particular product. Let us now look into the framework for a consumer-oriented family life cycle. The stages at which families find themselves in course of their life cycle affects the nature of goods and services they demand and may lead to marked changes in the volume of expenditure on specific products. Decisions are likely to be arrived at in different ways at different stages in a life cycle. For example, when the person is young, single, unmarried or under 35, characterized by below average income, high discretionary spending, considerable freedom, people not living at home. So few financial burdens they have, fashion opinion leaders could be there, recreation oriented, and buy the basic kitchen equipments and furniture. Newly married. Now these are basically young, married, no children, characterized by the good financial situation, creation of a new household, new obligations and activities. So high purchasing rate of consumer durable is there. Furniture, maybe it's auto, refrigerator, maybe we can say it's a high purchasing rate of mainly the furnitures or a household items. Then comes the stage of full nest one. A married, youngest child under 6. So that is characterized by arrival of children's parents, loss of freedoms, new focus on income, including financial debts, low liquid assets, dissatisfied with financial positions and savings, interested in new products influenced by advertisements. So they buy washing machines, maybe TV, baby foods, toys, etc. But when it comes to the full nest too, so these are also characterized by the married youngest child, 6 to 12 years, and then there is increase in the freedom of parents. There is an improvement in financial situations, scattering focus on income. Lower influence of advertisements could be seen. They may buy large, size packs, multiple units, food, cleaners, educational accessories. So different purchasing pattern can be seen in this cycles. Then is full nest 3, which belongs to the older married couple with dependent children. And then we can see there is an increase in freedom of parents. There is improvement in income, but presumed as society for college. They focus moving outside the home. Children may start getting jobs, difficult to influence with the advertisements. So these are few features which we can see in the full nest 3 category. They also buy furniture, magazines, appliances. But then comes the stage of empty nest 1. Now, there are only older married couples with no children living with them. And then we can say it has following characters. There is an increase in freedom of parents, improvement in finances, but the focus shifted to outside of home and extended family. Family head still working, peak homeowners, most satisfied with the financial positions and savings. So what they buy, they travel, recreation, self-education, gifts. So they are not very much interested in new products. So every cycle has a different characters and different features which impact their buying habits. Now, empty nest 2, the married Breford framework. Children have left home. So it is characterized by the drop in income, possible stress as finances due to medical concerns, substantial freedom, head of family retired, keeping home and possible focus as extended family. Now comes the solitary survivor. Now here is only widowed, refrain framework, children have left home. So we can say that there is a possibility of lower income, possible health and loveliness problem, substantial freedom and possible focus on extended families. Solitary survivor retired. Now we can see there is a drop in income, they buy medical care, they need attention, affection and security. Then comes the modernized life cycle, so which includes divorce and no children. So every life cycle has different impact on the consumer buying behavior. When there is a drop in income or there is more medical requirements, accordingly the consumer pattern could be seen. Family decision-making process. The assignment of role to a specific members of family has an impact on its social development and on its buying behavior. Traditionally, the duty of providing funds for the welfare of family is customarily assumed by husband. The wife tends to be custodian with responsibilities, particularly related to purchasing food and household goods. Now, due to urbanization or industrialization, westernization, education, socio-economic and political developments, so there have been rapid changes in the family roles and they are now very much different from the traditional era. A change in sex role produces changes in family purchasing roles. The buying decisions can be husband-dominated, it can be wife-dominated, joint or autonomous. The extent and nature of husband's or wife's influence in a family decision depends upon the specific product or services, the particular stage in the decision-making process and the specific features under consideration. So decision-making process is also very important in the consumer buying patterns, which is known as the crux of any buying process. In India, in spite of the greater cultural diversity, the structure of families shows uniformity to a large extent. The role of family member as an initiator, influencer, decider, buyer and user affects the decision-making process. So we can conclude that the sociological dimensions play important role in determining how the families make consumer decision. The structural variables like the age of the head of the family, marital status, presence of children, and employment status affects families' consumer behavior. Children may increase family demand for clothing, food, furniture, homes, medical care, education, while demand for discretionary items including travel, higher priced restaurants, or adult clothes may be decreased. The consumer decision making is, however, multidirectional. Apart from the family and psychological factors, the consumer decisions are influenced by traditional, cultural, religion, and society of which the consumer forms a part.